Hello, everybody. It's Fight Club Hubs. Welcome to another wonderful episode of GVN Live. With me is Emily, Keith, and Mr. Mark B. So, how's everybody been since the break? We'll start.
Doing all right. How are you?
Doing fabulous. How about you, Keith?
I'm doing pretty groovy.
All right. And Emily, you're doing good? You did it again. You forgot to unmute.
Yeah. I love it.
This is the first time I forgot to unmute. Thank you very much. You are the one that...
time.
No,
you
that is not true.
Because I had to remind you too.
That is not true.
Go watch
You're just
the
making
replay.
stuff up now.
Anyway,
I believe the song goes, "Why the fuck you lying?"
Yeah, like I don't remember that. You always seem to forget your mic. I just actually turned my mic off for once. I am doing well. I just got this game on my Switch.
Sweet. I'll think about whether or not I want to get it.
Oh,
You
hey,
should
look,
get-
Nick's back. Did you beat Persona 5 then?
We are weirdos. He's right.
Well,
All
I
right.
mean, if the shoe fits, absolutely wear it.
All right. So, well, without further ado, I'm just going to get right to the chase. Two things real quick before I hand it off to our host for the day. One, it is December. It is May, and with that, it is now Disney month for Game Jam. So, starting off this Wednesday, I will be hosting Game Jam. It will be The Lion King with my guest, the wife, and then after that, we will be playing Aladdin the following week, which will hopefully be my guest, Jason Finelli, who writes for Sci-Fi Games. I still have an open date, and I still have a pull-up, I believe, for the following Wednesday, which is going to be one Donald game and one Mickey game. So I have 4 games of each that you can pick from the vote. I'm still looking for a guest for that night. The following week, we got Mr. Gamer Keith here, who's going to be joining me for a little bit of probably. We're going to be doing 2 events of this. We're going to have the Disney afternoon. We're going to be doing this into 2 parts. The first will be Darkwing Dunk and maybe a little tailspin.
Darkwing Dunk?
I say dunk? Duck.
Yes, you did.
Darkwing Donk. He's complimenting the man's buttocks.
I mean, he did have a nice badonk, I guess, for a duck.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what? Donald has a nice badonk, if you really think about it. I mean,
Wait.
yeah.
And then after that, we're
What?
going to be finishing it off with Disney afternoon. I have my friend Andy coming up from Maryland, who will be doing a speed run for the original DuckTales, and then we're going to attempt a tag team Chippendale race where it's going to be a team, 2 teams, each playing Rescue Rangers, 2-player mode, and it's a race to the finish. And the kick is if one player gets a game over, you have to start the game over. You cannot let the guy finish the game solo.
Yep.
That's going to be brutal.
I remember that.
Well, we couldn't get it to work because your laptop just couldn't
I
handle the
know,
awesomeness of Rescue
I-
Rangers.
Brilliant.
Once I get my my PC, I will be well in the world again.
All right, so without further ado, of course, let us hand it over because in the month of May, we're practically only a few weeks away from celebrating our 1-year anniversary here on GVN Live.
Wow.
And with
1
that,
year.
we have 3 shows this month. And
That
with
is
that,
true.
just like we did back in October, where we had 3 shows, we are going to give each and every one of you a chance to host and draw the straws. Mark won. So, Mr. Mark B. writing, please take it away.
Yeah, you just wanted to be lazy for a month. I know how it is.
Yeah.
That's pretty
straight.
much what it is. But
Damn straight.
So, let's start off with the standards. What have you all been playing? Let's start with Mr. Robert here.
I actually have been going back and forth between Breath of the Wild, I Am Setsuna, and Puyo Puyo Tetris, which is crack to me right now because that is a lot of fun, especially in 2-player mode. I like the the way they fuse Tetris and Puyo Puyo Pop together. And I bounced back into Terra a little bit. I tried picking up Revelation, which is a new MMO that's in closed beta, but it's okay. So I picked up Terra again because they released the new Valkyrie class, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I get sucked into that game every several months. It's crack as well, so that's what I've been up to. It's a lot of fun. So.
All right, sounds good. What about you, Mr. Keith?
Well, I've been playing mostly The Legend of Zelda: The Breath of the Wild. I am playing the ever-loving crap out of that game. I love that game so much. But since
Except
it
he
is...
hasn't played in 8 days.
See, there you go.
Damn.
That's the judging right there. Damn. Wow.
See,
I have a counterbalance
I'm
to
friends
this.
with Keith on the Switch, and I just called him out on this earlier because he's always like, I've been playing the hell out of this. Yeah, like a week ago.
Listen.
I'm just kidding.
I'm not judging or anything, but
Just-
friends don't call out friends. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, mine, like,
Yeah, there was definitely a
Up in-
bus that I just got thrown under. It's like, damn. Oh, I can see it coming out of nowhere.
Except the bus just came and ran your ass over.
I got Amazon Prime. I can order you with free 2-day shipping a towel so you can wipe the tread marks off your back.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel better, there was a period of time where I didn't play on my Switch for 2 weeks.
Well, if anything, you didn't let me finish, Emily. You just had to cut me off and call me out, blow my spot up.
I'm so sorry,
okay.
Keith.
But,
Go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry,
Okay.
Keith. Go ahead.
But
Stop fighting.
I was actually playing some X-Wing versus TIE Fighter because it is
Okay.
May, and for whatever reason, whenever May the 4th comes around, I really want to get into Star Wars games because it's like the merry old month of May. So to
Are we
say.
talking about the classic X-Wing versus TIE Fighters on
Yes,
PC?
on PC. Yes, on PC. I downloaded it. I got it part of a Humble bundle, and it was just like all these really, really great old school games that I haven't gotten to play in a really long time. And it's like I actually have the physical copies of them, but I have to download drivers. Long story short, I'm fucking lazy. So I just downloaded those. I downloaded the games directly from Steam, and it's awesome. So I've been playing those. There now, damn. Mic drop. Boom.
You can't top Star
Okay.
Wars. Star Wars does take privilege at the beginning of May
That is true.
because we are only a couple days away from May the 4th.
And may the 4th be with you all.
I suppose it's better than yesterday with the whole "it's going to be May" thing.
Oh my god, it was everywhere I looked. Just pictures of Justin Timberlake and memes. It's gonna be May.
I do appreciate that he posted on Twitter, "Hey everybody, it's May." I do appreciate that he was in on the joke.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
A lot of people probably tweeted him.
No, I think probably Blizzard was all like, "Here's some money. Just say this."
Maybe.
I mean, like literally, they're rolling in it. So like an extra, $10,000 in PR is just like nothing to them.
I mean, that's fair, I suppose.
Here's $10,000. Just say, hey everyone, it's May. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Sure. Bring on the 10K, please.
And Pepsi would be like, please hold a can of our soda while you say that.
While
We'll
wearing a
give you-
Nike
we'll-
hat.
We'll give you another 20K.
I mean, it couldn't be any worse than Pepsi's been doing up to this point. Let's be honest here.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
But all right. So I don't remember. Did I actually ask you what you were playing, Emily?
No.
I thought I didn't, but I was like, you know what? I don't want to like
Be that
ask
guy.
it again and be stupid. So I was like, all right. So what have you been playing, Emily?
So recently I decided to finally get Colleen. So I got Colleen in Street Fighter V, the one character I complained about that I wasn't sure whether or not I'd actually like her, but nonetheless I did actually buy her and I do actually like her. So there's that. I was checking out her for a little while and playing Street Fighter V for a little bit, and of course, as I showed everybody, I got Mario Kart 8 so on Friday. So I've been playing the hell out of that majority of this weekend. And I did play a little bit of Zelda again. So Zelda, Mario Kart, Street Fighter 5. Mostly I'm trying to like go back to other games I have right now because there's a shit ton of fighting games and stuff that are coming out in the next 2 months, 3 months, like Ultra Street Fighter 2 and Injustice 2 and Tekken 7 and ARMS, which is all coming out literally in like the next like 2-3 months. So like literally there's 2 next month, 2 the following month, and so.
And don't forget about Marvel in September.
Yes, I did not forget about Marvel. Yes. Basically, the reason I'm saying it like that is because the Crash Bandicoot trilogy is also coming out before the end of the year, reboot, and pretty much all of like the 15 games I pre-ordered in the beginning of the month are like starting to come out like next month. So it's like I'm gonna have no money for the rest of this year because it'll be spent all on games. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Mario Kart, Zelda. I did get Samurai Showdown on my Switch as well, so I was playing that, and Binding of Isaac, and yeah.
So you've been playing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Pretty much.
The only thing I've played outside of more Persona 5 again has been I played the Prey demo for a bit.
How was that?
And it's okay, I guess. I kind of feel like it's trying to do an open world horror, which is not the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm not 100% on board with the concept that they're trying to do, but it's clear that they are trying to do some old school Deus Ex / System Shock style systems within it. So like you'll approach things and you'll have skills that will allow you to, move objects in the environment, like refrigerators and filing cabinets and stuff like that. So it's clear that they are trying to do like an RPG-ish systems bent to the game, which I'm fine with. I just don't find the actual core gameplay loop terribly exciting. The monsters that they have, like these monsters that are chameleons, that are like these little tiny things that are the core monsters you are going to encounter in the game by all indications. You can lump them up with a wrench or shoot them with a gun or whatever, and they're taken down in a couple of hits. The next enemies that you encounter are like kind of like fucked up humanoid looking things that I guess maybe are actual humans that have been converted into this or whatever. They don't really specify this early into the game. And they would seem like they would be your core, combat enemies that you would deal with. And yeah, they can ruin your shit in like 3 or 4 hits on the easiest difficulty. And I'm like, oh, so it's going to be this kind of game. And I'm just like, I don't really feel like the game 100% works the way that I would want it to. Like, it's not a combat style game. It seems more of a, like, a run and hide style game with weapons. And, like, I'm not 100% sure that I want to do that again so soon after Resident Evil 7, because I feel like Resident Evil 7 did a pretty good job of that. But, I mean, it's okay. I'd probably rent it. I don't know if I would pay money for it. But, it's all right. If you like horror, you might like it.
Is it on PS? Is it on PlayStation?
Yes.
PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. The demos are available for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. PC does not get a demo.
Is it available for the VR?
I do not know. I don't think they made it VR compatible, but they might have.
All right, I'll have to look it up.
I'm going to probably say no, but I could be wrong.
Well,
They
I'll
might
check
not
it.
have defined it that way, but
I'll still check it out nonetheless.
I was
Yeah, I
about
mean,
to
if
say,
it
I've
does
got to
have-
check it out myself now.
yeah, I mean, if it does have VR, I would definitely say check it out. Tell us what you
Oh
think.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, I will.
But,
what I'm actually surprised by is the fact that that game actually got a demo. Nowadays, there aren't any games that do demos anymore. I mean, that kind of stopped at the beginning of the Xbox 360's lifespan.
No,
Well,
not
going-
really. I mean,
There are still demos that come out every now and again. It's not nearly as much as it used to be, but going back to the conversation we had about how Bethesda is doing business,
Yeah.
it does stand to reason to them to release a demo to put their best foot forward, metaphorically speaking, so that players can see this game, and if they like what they see, go out and buy it, since there aren't going to be any reviews day of release.
Yeah. Okay. I
Which
mean,
I
I
can
definitely
respect.
agree with that. It's just I just find it weird that again, like the demos aren't as prevalent as they used to be, and sometime during, like I was saying, like the demos kind of started weaning off once the Xbox 360 and the PS3 came out, but somewhere around the middle of the console's lifespan, developers decided, we're going to release demos the day of the game's release. And I thought that was kind of stupid.
I mean, I don't feel like you're entirely wrong.
Yo,
Yeah.
I just checked it out real fast. I don't think it is on the VR.
Bummer.
It looks like it. Well, I mean, honestly, it's coming out in 4 days, so I might just check it out to see if I want to buy it or not.
On
Yeah,
Cinco
I mean,
de
if you
Mayo.
if you like first-person horror, I think it might be in your wheelhouse. I do, but not enough for.
I like
to do
Resident
what
Evil
it's-
7. So
Yeah,
would
I
I?
feel
So
like-
would I like it?
I feel like it's a little more combat-centric, but not a lot
Okay.
more combat-centric.
Okay.
So,
For me, that sucks. Okay, you guys so gracefully watched the one time I streamed Resident Evil 7. Could I
Yes.
handle it? Could I handle it?
You
I feel
handled
like
it pretty
it
well.
requires less puzzle solving, but there's
Okay.
a lot more stuff around you to interact with. So,
Okay. All right.
I mean, it might be easier without the VR, honestly. I would say,
Okay.
at least try the demo, see what you think of it. It's free,
Alright.
so.
That is true. Free is always nice.
But moving on, did you want to talk about the fighting game stuff? Because I know, as you had said before we went live, Summer Jam is coming up.
I mean, we don't have to do the intro
No
thing.
FTC corner.
Well, no, I'm saying you don't have to do the intro or anything like that, but there's certainly things there's plenty I could talk about, because I think since we did the show, we launched registration. We launched registration a week ago, so yeah, we announced a bunch of stuff.
Well, I thought early bird registration ends this week.
It does. Early Bird Reg was only a week. So it ends tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, then there's no point in doing that, because all four of the
You can still
people.
announce standard registration.
Well, yeah, so I gotta double check, but I'm pretty sure it goes up to 45 on Wednesday. It's 35 for early bird reg. It's been up for about a week. We have the event page launched as well. So all the information is on there. You just look up Summer Jam. It's Roman numerals XI, and you should be able to find it on Facebook with all the information there. Registration will be we're using Smash GG this time around. So we are switching our registration platform. So in order to register for that, you will have to make a Smash GG account, but it's really easy to make. It's not complex at all. So that'll be going up on Wednesday. I don't know if Keith actually mentioned this I don't think he mentioned this on stream, but sorry. I know I'm
Okay.
confusing you. You're raising your eyebrows what? We
Also,
did
my
announce-
dog is behind my green screen at the second, so I'm waiting for the imminent for this thing to fall on me. So,
Man
we
down.
did. There's volunteer forms, so we did also release the form today. If you want to be a volunteer at Summer Jam, you can fill that out. That's online. That's also on the website. There's a link at the top on biggiegaming.com's website that says join our team. It is a Capcom Pro Tour ranking event. It is a part of the Dead or Alive 5 circuits. We Vampire Savior and Blaze Blue Central Fiction are both free entry with a $300 pot bonus. Poker Tournament has a $1,000 pot bonus. Not this weekend, but the next weekend is our next Red Bull event. Broad Street Battles. Texas Showdown, I believe, is this next weekend. Combo Breaker showing up. There's a lot. The FGC, there's a lot of big stuff happening. DreamHack just happened this past weekend. I apologize, I wasn't prepared to do a whole FGC corner, so I'm literally just every time something fighting game related pops into my head, I'm saying it. That being said, because there was a debate about this online earlier, people were complaining that another DLC character wasn't announced. Supposedly, the next Street Fighter V DLC character will be Ed, and
Ed.
it hasn't. I say
Ed?
Ed. It hasn't been confirmed by Capcom, but it was confirmed by PlayStation Store, because apparently PlayStation Store leaked the third character by accident and include Ed in there, and then quickly removed it after people started noticing and posting it online and articles came out. Capcom is doing another online, weird, but apparently they're doing an online beta test where you can test their new and improved online server or something like that. That's coming up next week, I think. Supposedly, when they do that, you will be able to play this mysterious, probably Ed DLC character and check him out. Also, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite has a release date in September, which is sooner than a lot of people were thinking. So, I'm definitely excited for a new Marvel game. Injustice 2 comes out this month. Yes. So does Ultra Street Fighter 2 on the Switch.
Yes, I can't wait for that.
I'm definitely
so excited.
Definitely gonna
And
get
then
that.
Tekken 7 finally in June. That is coming up, and I believe ARMS is in July, or is that August? No, ARMS is in
I
August.
think it's August.
I think ARMS is in August. ARMS is hit or miss whether or not it's actually going to be popular, but
It's going to be interesting, to say the
I'm
least.
I'm still gonna get it. I have to. That's pretty much it right now. There's a lot of FGC events going along, a lot of big
It
things
says
happening.
June 16th
Oh, so wait, ARMS?
for ARMS. Yep, Nintendo's website.
I guess they moved it up. I thought it was later. I swear the last time I looked, because I was looking on,
Yeah, it says June
Yes.
16th.
I guess they moved it up. All right, so it's 2 fighting games in the month of June then, and 2 in the month of May. You get a little bit of break with fighting game. No, actually, they also announced recently that Unio, or Uniest, or whatever, the latest version of Unio is actually coming to PS4. So if you like Under Night in Birth, the latest version, that is also coming to PS4 in the future. It should be out, I think, actually before Summer Jam. So sometime in the next couple of months, it's coming out.
Like,
I'm gonna buy that.
the original Unil game was broke as shit.
Well,
it was
like I
fun
said,
though. It was insanely fun.
like I said, this isn't the original. So we actually did update at Summer Jam. Summer Jam's not going to have the latest version, and we're moving it to PS4.
I might pick that up. I might consider playing Killer Instinct too at Summer Jam. I'm not sure. Depends on if I can get a Brook converter for my Hori Commander.
You know, I would play Killer Instinct, but I love myself.
It's because you know you'd get your ass beat.
I'd play KI.
I know I would get
if
my ass beat because it's a terrible fucking game.
No, it's
Yeah.
no, it's
Actually,
Yes, it is.
actually, Killer Instinct is not a bad game. The only reason it's kind of disappearing is because, well,
it's
Xbox
on the
One.
Xbox.
And instead of obviously because it's Microsoft and they have an exclusive deal with Microsoft, the most they could do is bring it to PC. They can't bring it anywhere else, unfortunately. So
Well, it's a Rare property, and they own Rare, so it's not like they can license it out to anybody unless they pull a Sega
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, Acclaim, why don't you publish our shit somewhere else?"
well, I mean, that's part of the reason why it sucks, because the Xbox seemed to be like the dominant for fighting game tournaments and things like that, but unfortunately the PlayStation 4 did way better than the Xbox One and is better in my opinion, but that's coming from someone who doesn't like Xbox. So I mean, I plan on getting KI once I get the PC, but I just have no intention of getting an Xbox, and I honestly think that's part of the reason why it hurt the community so much.
Well, yeah, people are going to go. Most people are not going to invest in multiple platforms if they do not have to.
And
Absolutely.
considering the majority of them are on PlayStation 4, they're not gonna. Yeah.
Right, PlayStation 4 basically won this console cycle. It is what it is.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
I'm
it's
sorry.
like,
What
you
was
know-
that, Rob?
No, I was coughing.
Oh, okay.
I'm not disagreeing whatsoever. I think Sony kicks Microsoft's ass hardcore.
Oh,
Yeah,
hard.
Microsoft did the same thing that Sony did with the PlayStation 3.
Yep.
They made a bunch of mistakes and assumed that people were going to follow them to their console because people had console loyalty, which has never in the history of ever been true. And they made the same mistake everybody else who's popular makes. They fucked up, and the Xbox One tanked for it. They'll probably bring it back around whenever the PlayStation 5 and Xbox 2, or whatever the fuck they're going to call it, come back around again, because Sony will make the same mistakes that they always make, because nobody ever learns anything. But the point is that the PlayStation 4 won. It's winning now, and there's no benefit to having an exclusive anything, but specifically an exclusive fighting game on the Xbox One, because it's never going to go anywhere. It's not going to be anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that seems like it probably does our fighting game discussion for the day reasonably well.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it. I tried to give as much information that I knew at this moment.
Totally understandable. I figured you probably had a couple of things to go into, so I wanted to give
I'm
you.
gonna have a whole lot more actually to say as the year goes on, just because in the very beginning it's kind of difficult. There's not a lot like in the first, just a couple fighting game stuff, but a lot of stuff picks up after March. Plus, we're getting a lot of new fighting games, so that's another thing.
Yeah.
That helps too.
Yeah, between Marvel vs. Capcom, Tekken 7, updates to Guilty Gear, Under Night in Birth, etc., and the never-ending train of updates to King of Fighters, this is going to be a disgusting year for fighting games, I'm sure.
I mean, King of Fighters is actually surprisingly doing really well right now.
Oh, yeah,
I think I mentioned that before. They're growing.
They have a shitload
rapidly.
of DLC still.
Mm-hmm.
I
They're
just need to
still
go back
growing.
and pick up a couple characters. But
yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right, so let us go into our first of two discussion topics for the evening. The first one was actually in a roundabout way suggested by Mr. Keith, who had noticed that there was a new Resident Evil film coming out. Resident Evil Vendetta, was it?
Yes, or something along to those lines. But also, they're coming out with new stuff for. They're actually coming out with a new Resident Evil game as well.
Already?
Yeah, and it had Leon in it, and damn, I forget what the name of the. I forget what the name of it was, but yeah, it was with Vendetta. That's pretty much what it was with.
Resident Evil Vendetta, maybe?
I don't
tie in
remember.
with the movie?
Something along those lines. I just saw I saw that with along with the new movie.
Is this game going to be similar to like what the series was doing before, where they had like those little like Resident Evil like games that they were kind of like just putting out there? They weren't like full blown like new ones. That they came out on the PS3. I'm trying to remember. It was like 2 of them. Like you could get special deals on them. So they weren't like full blown new ones, but they were like smaller ones that they put out to keep people entertained.
Are you sure you're not confusing it with the possible Resident Evil 2 remake that's supposed to be coming?
Maybe that's what it was as well. I forget, but it was, again, the new movie was coming out, and then I saw that they were bringing back that game, or they were bringing back something. I was like, why are they doing this?
I mean,
I don't understand.
This is saying Resident Evil Vendetta digital and Blu-ray DVD release date announced.
Mhm.
I don't.
Is it a CGI movie? Like what they did
I
with
think it's a CG animated film franchise. It's coming out on June 19th. I don't think it's another game.
Oh, okay, so it just looks really, really good. As
yeah,
far as the,
I don't. From what I'm seeing here, it's a mystery science fiction film, an hour and 55 minutes, rated R. I don't think it's a.
yeah,
it's a new video game.
Yep, just Resident Evil Vendetta. That's what it was.
Okay. But Keith had kind of
Anyway.
mentioned that this was a new film that was coming, and had kind of suggested the idea of discussing the Resident Evil films in general, because it's tangentially related to video games in various capacities. So, with that in mind, I feel like the first question I should probably ask, just so we can get it out here, is what is everybody's familiarity with the Resident Evil film series?
Saw the first two,
we'll
and I
start with-
stopped after that.
Exactly.
I've seen several of them, including the latest one.
Okay. Keith, you said also the first two and you stopped?
Yeah, because I just don't know. It was just not very appealing, and the fact that Paul W.S. Anderson gets to sleep with Mila Jovovich just upsets me.
I mean, look, we can't be that mad about that guy trading up. Like, good for him, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
all right, what about the CGI films? Because we've actually had 3 different CGI Resident Evils that have come out. There was Degeneration back in 2008 and Damnation in 2012. Excuse me, 2012.
I did not see the CGI ones.
I did see the CGI ones.
I saw some clips of Degeneration. That's it.
Okay.
Not the whole movie.
And I have to say, Degeneration wasn't actually that bad, honestly.
Well,
Can I also do a quick aside here? I went to Paul W.S. Anderson's Wikipedia page for funsies. He's making a Monster Hunter movie.
Oh, God.
Really?
Why?
Really?
Yep, writer director.
Why does God hate everything?
hey, it could be worse. It could be Uwe Ball.
Oh no,
I
that
don't
would
feel
just...
I don't feel like an Uwe Boll Monster Hunter would actually be worse. At least I might enjoy that.
Kinda.
I mean, he's
So-
not the best director in the world.
Oh no, he's absolutely the worst director.
I was being sarcastic.
But that's why his movies are enjoyable. He is bad in a very special way that few people are bad. Paul W.S. Anderson is just
Eh. And again, he gets to sleep with Mila Jovovich. It's just horrible.
Listen, I can't be mad at the fact that he can sleep with a beautiful woman. I'm sure that she's annoying, whatever. It's fine.
No.
It's annoying.
Listen. There's an old saying, and it goes, think of the most beautiful person that you can think of. Somebody somewhere is tired of their shit. All
She
I'm
probably
saying.
snores at night.
I could live with that, honestly. She's gorgeous. Swing.
Swing.
Oh
Why don't you
my
go
God.
back to the 90s with your lingo and watch Fifth Element 1,000 times?
Absolutely.
Well,
But anyway.
I think it's safe to say that we have a general consensus that the Resident Evil films, whether they be the CGI version or the live-action version, are not the best films that could possibly exist.
No, I
Would that-
got
No,
would that-
they're not.
Okay.
They're okay. I've seen a couple of them, but they're not like,
Well, here's my
my
thing.
favorite on the list.
Well, here's my thing with the movies, or even with any video game movie in general, is that there's literally already a story that you have here. I don't know why they have to make such horrible adaptations that go away from the mythos so much, or they only pick like pieces apart of like the mythos that they could do, or they would think would be exciting. It's like you have this whole grand universe that you could just literally take from already and just do something with it.
Okay, so that actually is a part of why I'm not a big fan of the Resident Evil films. Is the first film is uninteresting in the sort of way that most Matrix-inspired action movies from that time period were uninspired. It's a film with zombies in it where the most lethal thing in the first half of the movie is a laser grid. Like, you're not going into that film for the Resident Evil experience, but none of the characters in that film were in any way, shape, or form tied into the Resident Evil movies, or the games, I should say. So if you had wanted to tell a different story, you could have done that, and it would have been totally fine. And then in the second movie, Nemesis is her boyfriend, and is helping her beat people up, and other characters from the franchise are just hanging around being useless in front of Mila Jovovich's character Alice, and it's, so this is what we're doing. Your Mary Sue is better than all of the characters in Resident Evil. Because look, let's be clear, Resident Evil is a Mary Sue fantasy. Alice is literally Mila Jovovich, Paul W.S. Anderson's literal wife, who is the best at everything. And is surrounded by all of the characters from the actual Resident Evil series who spend all of their time telling her how wonderful she is and how tragic her story is. It's literally a Mary Sue thing. That's not even a joke. It's so personally, I feel that Paul W.S. Anderson is deeply, deeply untalented as a writer and as a director, and Mila Jovovich is attractive, and thank God for that, because she is deeply uninteresting as an actress.
Except for Days of Confused. She was awesome in that movie.
Again, Fifth Element also. She was decent in that.
True.
Well, sure, but that is more of a case of the film playing to the strengths of the actress rather than the actress playing to the strengths of the film.
Very true. Very true.
So, but the CGI movies, you would think, would be a better outlet for this sort of thing. because these are controlled by Capcom. These are telling stories that Capcom wants to tell about the Resident Evil universe. And I don't know. I've seen the first one. Wasn't very good.
Now, doesn't Degeneration supposedly link into is like a in between movie between Resident Evil 5 and 6? I don't remember.
Oh yeah, no. All of the CGI movies specifically exist between the other film or the other games in some capacity or another. Degeneration, I want to say, exists somewhere between Resident Evil 4 and 5, or maybe 5 and 6, but it's decidedly tied into the game canon, and it also brought back both Leon and Claire. I think it was kind of meant to capitalize on everything that Resident Evil 5 was doing in the universe it was creating, while still keeping Leon relevant for his appearance in Resident Evil 6, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out where it landed in between the canon, but it does not really give me a clear definition of it.
I want to say it was between 4 and 5, just because of when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking as well. But again, I couldn't put... Because I actually thought Degeneration was all right, but like you said, it could have been a lot better by all aspects.
Your camera locked up, bro.
I was actually just sending a message saying that, asking if his video... I literally just said, Keith, is your video okay?
Okay.
The only one with a still image here is supposed to be Mark. We don't need two people doing that.
Technically, Mark's image isn't completely still.
Yeah, but now I just look like a creeper. So
you still look like a creeper. Oh my god.
I have no idea what the heck is going on, but as long as it's because XSplit is down or needs to be rebooted. But continue onwards.
All right, so the first movie, I believe, takes place between 4 and 5. The second movie definitely leads into Part 6, because they even had trailer stuff in it from Part 6. The third one apparently is supposed to take place between 6 and 7, which, okay. And it's these are films that are meant to flesh out elements of the franchise that aren't getting their own games necessarily, mostly surrounding Leon for some reason. And it's just, I don't know, you would think that with Capcom having the actual control to decide what they're going to have in these movies to advance the plot they want to present, that they would make a good piece of work. And that, so far, doesn't seem to be the case either.
I mean, this is part of the problem, I feel like, that we see. What?
It's just something Nick said. Nick said that Umbrella went after Keith for trashing the movies.
Oh.
Yes,
Okay.
Clearly they did.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean, I think this part of the problem that we see with the Resident Evil movies is similar to what we see with a lot of video games that are made into movies. They try to... It's like they deter too far away from the actual storylines from the video games. And I think that's part of the problem, because people just want to see it fleshed out. Instead of playing it, you're watching it. If you make a movie that's not close enough to the actual game itself around the characters that you love, especially something with Resident Evil, which has had so many, like Silent Hill, which has had so many movies, yes, I can. Well, you're not saying anything, so I can't hear you. But
no, I just meant overall. But
yes,
yeah, we can hear you just fine.
Yeah,
okay.
So I think that's part of the problem. They're deterring too far away from the actual storylines and the atmosphere of the actual game with the movie. Because, for example, Silent Hill, I actually thought that movie was very well done compared to the actual game. Sure, they changed.
I do want to chime in after you're done.
I mean, like I said, everybody has their own opinion about it, but I think majority of movies I've seen that are made from video games for the most part, I'm never fully satisfied with, and majority of people aren't fully satisfied with them. It's very hit or miss. I mean, Hitman just came out not that long ago, didn't it? And like no one heard about that.
It's because it has Timothy All Fantastic inside of it, and he's just a douche.
Yeah, but I just that my point is I just feel like that part of the problem with the Resident Evil movies is the same problem we see with majority of other video games that are made into movies as well. They're just not. They just don't feel like the actual video game. It's like
I feel like it's a balancing act. Like, I would agree with you that Silent Hill is probably the best video game movie
that's what
as a film.
That's what I was trying to
in
get
terms
across,
of its adaptation of the story. Yes.
Yes, that's what
No,
I
I
was
agree
trying
with
to
that.
say.
No, I
wasn't
would
saying
disagree
it
with
was
that.
You would disagree with it.
I would say that it is the best possible adaptation. It is the best possible video game movie you could create as a film. As an adaptation, it's shit. The best possible video game movie as an adaptation is and will forever be Mortal Kombat.
Really?
Yes.
Yes. I agree with that.
Okay.
Mortal Kombat is probably one of the best. However,
I could see that.
I would also argue Tomb Raider, but that's because at the time that the Tomb Raider film came out, there was not a lot of plot going on in the Tomb Raider universe, so it was Lara Croft raid tomb, do good thing. And there was really very little you could fuck up there. Like, I'm not going to argue that Tomb Raider is any kind of high cinema, let's be clear. But as an adaptation of a video game, it is a film that is watchable while staying close enough to the source material.
But then every now and then you'll have, a Double Dragon or a Wing Commander that, screws all that up.
Yeah, it's I feel like the core problem is that it's a very hard balancing act between keeping your continuity in check while also presenting a product that people want to see. Let's take, for example, Silent Hill. Silent Hill is a great movie, I would think. Not an
really
amazing movie. It's like somewhere between a 7 to an 8 out of 10, let's say, as a film. It has its problems, but most films do. But as an adaptation, it's, it changes a lot of the way Silent Hill works in egregious ways.
It also borrows ideas. Like, if they're sitting here trying to create a movie based on the first game, but they're also pulling ideas from games later in the franchise, and some of those ideas don't really work well, in my opinion. Like, they brought in Pyramid Head, which is really an embodiment of the main character from the second game, but so he doesn't exactly fit well in the universe that the first movie is, trying to create.
I like the fact that they did include him in there. Like, I like when they actually add elements of the game into the movie, because I'm invested so much in a game that I want to be able to relive it a little bit more in the movie.
But here's the thing with that, and that was kind of piggybacking off of what I had to say, is that they kind of had an amazing canon really going on already for it, but I agree with you as far as they kind of did fan service is what they did, is that, this is a Silent Hill movie. Oh, we really have to show, like, this particular thing, because that's really what got the audience going for the video game, was things like Pyramid Head and whatnot for it. But again, you have such great source material, I don't know how you cannot adapt it from there.
But see, okay. And I'm only bringing this up because I realize it's mostly about Resident Evil, but I guess we're kind of talking about video games being made into movies in general.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, one of my favorite video game franchises, and it pains me because I have no idea how they're going to do with this movie, but I really want it to succeed, is God of War. So God of War is being made into a movie, and you can't get much information on it except on IMDb Pro right now, and I only know that because I have IMDb Pro, and I'm noticing that more and more I'm seeing more and more video games being developed into movies. So I guess,
but
Mark,
a lot of those might not make it out, though.
Well, here's the thing, and I wanna ask Mark, is it okay if I pose a question?
Sure.
Okay. So my question is, because more and more we're starting to see, like, I even think they're doing another fighting game one that's in development again too. I think they're trying with Mortal Kombat again, but I have to check. My question is, what can they do? What do you guys think they can do right? Because we're talking about the things that are wrong. They just can't quite get it right, and they keep trying. I will give the film industry props. They keep trying to make video game franchises into movies over and over again. It's the same thing with superheroes because video games are becoming popular and comics are popular. It's just nothing pretty much. But so that's my question. What do you think they can do to actually improve? Like, because for me, God of War, like, I mean, I want that to actually succeed. That's one of my favorites. So, but at the same time, if they destroy it, it's going to be super disappointing. You know what I mean? Like,
Let's establish
in my
a baseline.
opinion,
Let's establish a baseline before we go into this. It's very difficult to make a video game movie. There have been very few true successes. You kind of have to stay just close enough to canon without going too far into canon or too far away from it. If you go too far away from it, you get Street Fighter the movie or Super Mario Brothers. If you stay too close to it, you get the Hitman movies. I think it's safe to say here that nobody here, unless it's ironically, likes the Street Fighter movie or Super Mario Brothers or the Hitman movies. Is that a safe assessment?
there's some kind of comedic charm to them. That's about it.
Right. Okay. So with that in mind, I think we kind of have to start from the example of you can't go full canon, but you can't fuck the canon either.
In my opinion, one of the things I think game developers can do, or movie studios can do, is to work with the game developers. I'm not saying like go full on, but like have somebody like from the studio in on with like the writing of the story and the creation of like the movie's canon and lore and stuff like that. I mean, if you want to talk about going full in on like the movie's lore, on the game's lore, I mean, just look at the Warcraft movie. I mean, that was pretty much that had Blizzard's hands all over it, and it was just a mediocre game. But then you got the games like movies that like the Double Dragon games, where they just took the idea of two guys in a rough, tough neighborhood just going around beating people up. It didn't work.
Well, no, but you mentioned something. You mentioned the idea of having like kind of one of the writers, like original writers of the games, like being involved in things like that. And that's the thing about God of War. There's not a lot of information on it right now, but the guy who wrote majority of all the storylines in all the video games is the main producer right now and for the movie. But then the only other information you have are the writers. Now, the writers that are writing the screenplay, they wrote the Saw movies.
I don't.
Listen, I
So-
enjoy
doing
doing
well.
That is not a good fit. That is not a good fit. It's not a good fit.
I'm just stating it. But the guy that wrote them all is producing it. So I mean, I'm just saying, like, you know, I have my doubts. So you were bringing up, but they might. Let me rephrase this. Do you think the movie though would stand a chance, given the fact that the person who's producing it is directly the one who wrote the characters and all the storylines in majority of all the God of Wars?
Well, here's the thing I have with God of War in particular. The first game is interesting. Every other game after that goes way off the rails narratively, and Kratos really just stops being a character I can particularly relate to or appreciate. Like,
Tragic character.
The first story is a really good tragic character tale where he ultimately sees redemption and everything goes great. Everything after that is this perverse revenge porn where Kratos as a character is just a dick.
Revenge porn.
He's just a dick, and he's just doing awful things to further his revenge. He's not a likable character, and he's not an interesting character. If you're going by the virtue of the first game, I think you have a great movie. If you're going by the virtue of the later games,
They're shit shows.
yeah,
Like,
that without the gameplay, that story's fucking terrible.
Well, which particular one are you referring to?
Any of them. Literally any of them except, well, maybe the PSP game. Maybe the PSP game also. The first game and the PSP game would probably be fine. The second and the third game, no, fuck them.
So
I was even thinking of Ascension. I mean, Ascension was horrible.
Ascension, I was gonna just bring up Ascension. I mean, I'm a little biased. I liked a lot of the other ones, but I would probably have to say Ascension was kind of nah.
Total meh.
I wasn't really, and I have every single God of War game. And
So do I.
Ascension, and Ascension was meh for me.
I have Pandora's Box. I mean, honestly, I love God of War, but like you said, is that Ascension was just
I just feel like they keep doing it wrong. Like, why would you get... Now, I get it. I guess there's some horror elements to God of War, but it's really primarily, like, action and fantasy. There's not really a lot of, like... Sure, it's gory, but there's not... You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's not like, you know, Hatchet or Saw. It's a completely different... And yet, the Collector, the Collection, Saw... Hatchet 1, 2, 3, whatever. Those are the guys that are writing it.
Yeah, I don't know 100% how I feel about that. Like,
those aren't
I
the
don't think that's a
directors.
good
Those are just the
fit.
guys that are writing the screenplay, and I'm just not exactly.
Yeah, so it's all right. So bringing that back into the core thing, it's using God of War as an example. We can see that, you know, it's hard. It would be hard to get the right tools in place. So I think you can actually kind of retroactively apply that in a certain extent to the Resident Evil discussion. I feel like the Resident Evil films just veer wildly off canon, obviously. Like, Paul W.S. Anderson, as I said, is just deeply untalented. And is just making a vehicle for his wife to, you know, Mary Sue her way around the Resident Evil universe. It's clearly making money, and, you know, she's getting paid, he's getting paid, whatever. Conversely, I feel like the Capcom films kind of adhere way too stringently to the continuity, and they assume that you know everything that's going on. And I feel like part of that problem, obviously, is Capcom is not good at writing, just in general, but even if they were, it's sort of like watching the Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. You know, like, these are films that are being made exclusively for the people who like this franchise.
yes.
If you show Advent Children to somebody who is not a fan of Final Fantasy VII, their entire response is going to be, "What the fuck is this bullshit?"
What the fuck's going on? Who's this emo kid with the big sword?
So it's and I feel like in general that's actually a good lesson that you can apply to all video game movies. From what we've talked about here, it's like you can't make a movie just for the fans, because at the end result you're going to get the CGI Resident Evil movies, or you're going to get you know, Advent Children, a movie that is utterly impenetrable if you are not a fan of the 6, 10, 12, 20, 50, 100 hour game that you're playing. But if you go too far in the other direction, you make a thing that, you know, even if it's profitable, nobody really likes it.
Yep.
Nobody has to be like, oh, I have to go see that.
I mean, the first two Resident Evil movies, I mean, they were... What didn't work for me, to be truthfully honest, was just the fact that they took too many of the core elements of the early games out, like the horror aspect of the game, the survival, you know, aspect of. I mean,
It doesn't feel like Resident Evil to me. Yeah, it does not feel to Resident Evil to me when I watch them.
We were watching a zombified version of Aliens.
Yeah.
That's what it felt like. I mean, it's
guess
like maybe Paul W.S. Anderson feels like James Cameron wannabe light.
But see, that's why movies like
No.
Silent Hill... I don't want to go that far, but that's why movies like Silent Hill worked enough for me to be invested and watch it, because it had enough elements of the game that I felt, okay, that's close enough to it that I can, you know... Sure, it's not the best adaptation. There's definitely been better adaptations out there, but it felt the most like Silent Hill to me. Speaking of which, while I'm telling you guys about new movies, you do know they're making another Silent Hill movie, right?
Are they?
It's fine by me.
They are.
I mean, Konami's not doing anything with it at this point. Somebody might as well do something with it.
Yeah, really. Yeah, really.
Exactly.
The thing is, when do you stop, though? When do you stop?
It-
Like Resident Evil.
When you run out of this.
Stop.
You thought Resident Evil would stop, but nope. There's another one coming out like a year later.
Yeah, they were talking about this being the end of the Alice saga. I'm not even sure I believe that, but whatever. They may just reboot it. Who even knows? But yeah, like, I mean, when do you stop? I think is an entirely separate conversation.
I'm
Like,
just
God
saying,
knows,
it
but-
doesn't seem like they're ever going to stop trying.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not, and I can't fault them for that if it's making money.
Yeah.
but
Bouncing back,
it's-
how many Saw movies have they made now?
I think there's only
like
supposed to
8?
be a total of, but there's only supposed to be a total of 8. I think. I don't think they're making any more.
They
might
keep
be.
saying that, and then they
saying-
keep announcing more of them. So we'll
That's
see.
true. That's true. That's true.
I would say, personally, at the end of the day, I think it's you know, I agree with Emily's assessment on this, that Silent Hill has enough of an understanding of its source material such that even though it is not accurate to its source material, it does enough of a good job that it's intelligible as a Silent Hill movie while also still being enjoyable. I would still argue that Mortal Kombat is the best possible example of a video game movie that stands up well in adaptation, but that may be because Mortal Kombat as a franchise had, at the time, virtually nothing to it. And that, you know, if you were
Very
to
simple
attempt
plot,
to
to
make
be
a Mortal
honest.
Kombat movie, if you were to attempt to make a Mortal Kombat movie now, it would probably be a complete unintelligible fucking mess.
Oh,
But-
horrible.
But then again, on the alternative comparison, we also look at what they did to Street Fighter and Jesus Christ. So,
You
I guess-
you do realize, Azers, you do realize that I wasn't kidding. They are making another Mortal Kombat movie,
Yep,
right?
this
It's
one's
in
supposed to be
development.
rated R or something
they've
like
been
that.
talking about that a couple of times now, and if they can do it, God fucking bless them.
They have a director for it now.
But does anybody else have any final thoughts they would like to add to this discussion?
I think that Emily kind of brought it up of that. I don't think they're really necessarily thinking of that. Oh, should we continue making these movies because not really too popular, but why are they making these movies should be the more posing question.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Emily's assessment about the franchise and, you know, all that's going on with video game movies. When it comes to, like, you know, trying to do a video game movie the right way, whether it's veering off from the source material and doing your own thing or even following the source material, you don't know if it's going to succeed. It's like damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean,
It's tough.
it
I
is.
mean that's just kind of my opinion. I just kind of always feel like they just don't quite get it right. Like I said, the only reason I use Silent Hill as an example is because I felt they used enough from the game that made me feel like, oh, okay, Silent Hill. But,
Mhm.
you know.
No, I agree, definitely. All right. With that in mind, let us move on to our other topic for the evening.
Which is a completely different topic.
And now for something completely different. But so as we've discussed in bits and pieces, I've been getting more and more into board games, just in general. And you know, I've been having board game nights. We've had people over. We just had a board game night on Saturday, as a matter of fact. And I've been, you know, experimenting with more complicated board games beyond the stuff that we grew up with. You know, which, unless your childhood was really interesting, was probably games like, you know, Monopoly, Clue, Parcheesi, stuff like that. And, you know, I've been delving into things like, you know, Fury of Dracula or, Cthulhu Wars or A Study in Emerald, you know, things like that. And it's one thing I've kind of noticed is that I love a lot of the board games that I'm playing to various different degrees, but you don't really see a lot of digital interpretations of these games. And it kind of occurred to me when thinking about that, we don't really see a lot of board games in general anymore. Like when we were kids, maybe, but in this point, like, you're basically just going to see, you know, the occasional Hasbro fun pack that gets released on the live services or what have you. And that's kind of it. And conversely, like, you would think that video games would also allow for counter programming, like to be converted into board games and whatnot, because board games are getting bigger than they ever have, and that's not really a market that a lot of people are exploring either. And I kind of wanted to talk about why that is. So let's start with the obvious conversation. Why, outside of, you know, the Hasbro party packs that have, like, you know, games for the whole family to sit around with, or Mario Party, why aren't we seeing board games on consoles?
My personal opinion, I mean, it's just a matter of, I guess, licensing combined with just the fact that a lot of the games that they have attempted to try and release in video game form just didn't really pan out or work out well. It just became like shuffleware. I mean, they tried a few of that stuff with the on the Wii back when, like, people were just, you know, spitting as much crap out as possible. I mean, you definitely had your digital versions of Monopoly, and I think there was a game of the Game of Life.
Yes,
there
Life
was also
on there, yeah.
there's also, I think, on Xbox Live Arcade there was a Catan. I think I mispronounced that. You said it earlier.
Settlers of Catan. Yes.
Settlers of Catan, yeah, got a video game conversion to it as well, and that surprisingly was well done. But outside of that, I mean, you have Mario Party. It's a stupid, simple, fun game that you could pick up and play,
Well,
whereas everything else is a little bit more in depth.
Well, okay, so my opinion on this is this. I think it has everything to do with society and what's popular now compared to what was popular then, and technology becoming more advanced. So, Mark, you brought up the fact that when we were younger, and I'm going to say in the 90s because I grew up in the 90s, board games, they were very popular. Yeah, they are, but they were primarily popular when we were kids, when we were growing up in the 90s. And this is before technology started evolving and, you know, video games became more advanced and film, technology, everything. So at this time, it was board games. And so even as everything advanced, you will see that a lot of the PC, like, card games, like Hoyle had, like, some of those great, like, card games for the PC, and other
Sierra
video
made
games.
a bunch of good games for that as well.
But you see a lot of that primarily popular in the 90s. That's as board games got less popular and technology evolved, you saw less and less. You don't see a lot in the 2000s, but if you go back and look from, like, the late 80s all the way into the 2000s, you'll see that primarily majority of the ones that were made came out in that time frame. They just weren't popular anymore after that. I mean, I have a game on my 3DS. It's like a card game thing that I got. It was cheap, and, like, it's okay, but I play it occasionally. It's not something that I'm like, ooh, I have to have this. So, you know, I think that's, like, one of the biggest issues why you don't see it. It's board games aren't popular. It's all.
I would actually argue that is incorrect.
I was about to say
that's incorrect on 2 points. The first point is traditional board games.
Society?
Yes, actually, I would argue that's incorrect. And give me a second,
Okay.
I will qualify that. The first point is board games in general are more popular than they ever were, just in general. Now, your traditional board games like Monopoly, Guess Who, things like that, maybe not so much.
That's what I'm referring to.
Sure.
I'm not referring to the newer ones. The newer ones, I could argue along with you, but I'm referring to, like, Scrabble, like a lot of the older popular games that we played as kids that you don't see anymore.
Sure, and a lot of those games are still getting, like, their occasional releases. Like, if you go on Steam, there's a Hasbro pack where Monopoly is a part of it, you know, Clue is a part of it, stuff like that. Risk has a version, but it's only the most popular games. Like, you know, Yahtzee, Parcheesi, stuff like that. Yeah, I would agree. There's a limited market for those because as a board game, there's a limited market for those. Board games are starting to become more of a mainstream thing in general.
But see, are you talking about, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, you're talking about, like, the fantasy type board games though, right?
I'm talking about all kinds of board games outside of pen and paper RPGs. Like,
Okay.
I don't want to talk about D&D or White Wolf or anything like that, but I do want to talk about, like, the stuff you see on Will Wheaton's Tabletop or on Geek and Sundry's channel in general, for example. Like, the stuff that we're starting to see getting more notable. Board games in general can encompass a wide amount of different things, though. And Mario Party, is a thing that has consistently been a popular game for Nintendo. The Hasbro packs generally make their money. And when companies do occasionally try to get into making video game versions of popular tabletop games, for example, Blood Bowl, Space Hulk, those games generally do make their money back and then some, enough in many cases to justify sequels. It's just, to me, it's interesting that we're not seeing more of a push to get those out there. Because, Tabletop Simulator is a thing that exists, and people are making modules based on popular board games that you can play on Tabletop Simulator.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's not the most friendly way of playing the games. Tabletop Simulator is a little wonky, but it's a thing, and people, a shitload of people have bought Tabletop Simulator. I just find it confusing that more companies aren't trying to cash in on that popularity. Especially considering that, when those games do come out, they sell.
Okay, but how much are they selling? You probably know a little bit more about this than I do. So, because I don't play a lot of tabletop games anymore, at least not the way I did when I was younger. So, I have a point, but how much do you theoretically think they're selling?
I don't have an exact number, obviously, but...
Well, Tabletop Simulator is selling for like $20.
Estimate. No, I mean how many people? Total number, rough estimate.
It would depend, but I would say, based on the fact that the games are getting sequels, they're selling beyond their means. They're selling to a level that justifies the investment from the parent company. If I had to venture a guess, less than 1 million, but more than 100,000.
But see, that's in today's video game standards. You want more than that.
Sure.
You want a big market. I mean, majority of these games, like Super Mario Kart 8, that probably, okay, maybe that's not a good example. Zelda definitely has sold at this point over 1 billion copies, the new one. So a lot of these newer games that are coming out, they have a huge market that they're aiming for, that they're trying to get to these players. If you don't have that huge market and you're saying less than 1 million or more than over 100,000, that's not good enough for a lot of these video game developers.
Oh, sure, but I'm not arguing AAA necessarily. Any video game developer, because again, Space Hulk isn't being developed by AAA developers. Battle Bowl isn't being developed by AAA developers. I find it interesting that you're not seeing a smaller developer jumping in and trying to say, you know what, I'll make a video game version of Tokaido or Fury of Dracula or, Cards Against Humanity, for Christ's sake.
I got a question.
That would be awesome.
Do we consider,
and especially if they could add a multiplayer aspect to it, that would be awesome. Sorry.
Do we consider tabletop games along with board games let's say the Warhammer or War Machine stuff?
Nah. Would you?
Warhammer, well, games that are based off of the Warhammer universe, like Space Hulk and Assassinorium, yes. Warhammer itself, that goes into a specific kind of tabletop that is closer to pen and paper RPGs.
Okay.
The amount of financial investment required, I would say, probably not.
All right. Well, in that case, what I had in my head will just go out the window.
Though I do appreciate the core intent, which is why don't they just make a fucking Warhammer game? And they have, actually.
I
mean,
mean,
multiple
stuff like
Warhammer
that.
games, but it's the core thing is that those are games based in that universe, but they're not they're RTSs and first person shooters and shit. So it's more, we like the idea of what you're doing, but not necessarily the thing that you're doing. Though, all right.
I remember reading about it before, so I just figured I would give you the article.
But if anything, if I could say, with the tabletop games, I think that not so much that they're not popular, they're very, very popular, as you were saying, Mark, especially with Geek and Sundries, with Will Wheaton, Felicia Day, all them. So pretty much, I think that it's not a question of that, but I think that it's also that it's a very, very niche audience. So you're trying to appeal to this niche audience that while it's big, but I think that they like more so of the social aspect of being able to sit around and actually have something more so physical or something like that. And I don't really think they've refined it enough to they could add in those multiplayer aspects and try to keep it like that. But I think it would be awesome if they could, like you said, with Cards Against Humanity. How awesome would that be? So that way you don't have to drive to someplace. But again, I think they're appealing to more of a niche market, those board games for it, and people like actually going out and playing.
But see, that's what I was saying. It's not that I don't think it wouldn't be popular among those who play board games, but I know, and I'm not necessarily saying that this is you, Mark, because I know that there's a wide variety of different people out there, but I know people that don't play video games that love board games, and they'll go to board game events and they'll have these elaborate board game parties, but they don't care about video games, and it's gonna be difficult to make a video game of a board game when half of your audience doesn't care for video games. They just want to play the board games.
That's true to a point, but there are benefits. A lot of my friends, as an example, do not live in a geographically desirable location to play a tabletop game.
It's true.
So if I want to introduce people to the idea of a board game that I like, but they're outside of the area, my options are kind of limited. You're going back to Tabletop Simulator. And at that point, there's definitely an opportunity there where if you have friends who are in different states or even different countries, you can potentially play a tabletop game with them, which as more of us are finding that we have a lot of more friends online than we do locally, you know, it makes it easier to organize those kind of events. Like, I have tabletop nights and we can get, 6, 7, 8 physical people here, but I'm asking Rob to drive half an hour, 45 minutes one way. I'm asking Keith to drive half an hour, 45 minutes one way. I'm asking, others of my friends to drive like half an hour one way just to come and hang out for a few hours. It's great. I love it. But it means that we can only do it sporadically because it's not reasonable to ask people to make that kind of a trip every week or whatever. So I feel like there's definitely a market for people who love the idea of tabletop, even if you're not a video game fan, who just have friends who are geographically disparate from one another who might want to join in on a game.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love the idea of board games being made into games. I mean, I always found it easier to... It is easier to play people online than it is to be there in person. Because like you said, travel. I mean...
Plus, I don't have to wear pants if I'm playing board games.
Because no, I mean this is a good example. Because for example, the one time I did Rob's game jam show, it was difficult for me because it would have been easier if I could be there. But he lives almost an hour away, and with the way my schedule was, I just couldn't drive all the way out there, do it that late, drive all the way back. It would be after 1 a.m. by the time I got home, and I'd work in the morning. It was way easier for me to just do it from here, but then that posed a problem as well because my stuff is in like my laptop. There were problems with it, and we ended up playing fighting games on the PS4 because my laptop just wasn't connecting to the internet right. So applying that to board games, yeah, a lot of people live far away. So if you want to play games with people, your options are limitless, board game wise.
Yeah, I mean, it would be easier to incorporate people who have difficult lifestyles. Like, your life is very challenging at this point with all of the different work that you're doing. So it's not necessarily feasible for us to be like, hey, Emily, come play board games. But if it was a digital...
I would if I could.
Right, exactly. That's the point that I'm making here. Like, having those options available would be great. Having a digital version of Tokaido or Cards Against Humanity. And as an aside, the thing that you linked, they actually decommissioned it already.
What? Are you serious?
Yep, he couldn't afford hosting fees anymore. He took it offline.
Oh, well, that sucks. Sorry, guys.
That's cool. But like, having that ability to play, Betrayal at House on the Hill or whatever with your friends anywhere would be great. And it's another thing to keep in mind is look at the games that we do see that get released digitally. And I'm not just talking Mario Party here. Look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Look at Magic the Gathering. Those games make bank. They sell millions of copies. And yeah, they're based off of, collectible card games, but a lot of the big selling point is I can play people around the world. And I mean, hell, fighting games saw something of a renaissance due in part to online play, and board games don't have, the issue of worrying about stuff like frame delays and shit. Like, turns can be completely asynchronous and it doesn't fucking matter, I definitely feel like there's a market there that there just isn't being tapped. And I feel like the converse is true. I feel like we could probably do more with video games being transitioned into board games. And while I think we've seen a couple of those pop up more recently, like that's a decidedly dead space in the board gaming world. Like most recently they have an XCOM game which works off of a combination tablet app and board game where you basically can play with even as little as one player to simulate the experience of doing XCOM in a tabletop setting. And it's fine. It's about as good as you could conceivably do this. I haven't personally invested financially in it yet, but it looks neat, and I've been excited about it. But, like, you could do a tabletop, like, Fire Emblem game, for example.
Yeah, there's a lot of games I think that might have potentially be a tabletop game, but hell, I think StarCraft could convert, to a tabletop game, to be truthfully honest.
It is.
Oh, they
made a version of Risk. They made a version of Risk based around.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier. Actually, that's why it stuck in my head.
They did a Resident Evil one. They did a Gears of War board game.
I like Legend of Zelda Clue the best. It's all like, so clearly Ganondorf has to be the guilty party in all of this nonsense.
Listen, Link could somebody. He breaks everyone's pots.
Very true. Very true.
But wow. Board games are getting slotted into other people's games.
They even did BioShock Infinite, really?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Mm-hmm. Now,
yeah, I don't. I sent a link. Batman Arkham City. How did they make that into? Okay, now sorry, I was just curious. So if there were actually ones being into board, but okay.
I got a question actually, Mark.
Sorry.
Okay. Mark, so we got obviously you said board games are a lot more popular now than they were back then. So does that bode well for a lot of the games that are being done through Kickstarter? Like I think you said one of the ones we played at your house about a month or two ago was one that was kickstarted. That spy game, I believe we were playing, if you remember what it was called.
Are you talking about the Resistance or Secret Hitler?
Resistance.
I don't know about his Secret Hitler.
Secret Hitler is fun, I will say, and it does have an app that has Will Wheaton on it. So there you go.
Yeah, I do not. I believe the one was kickstarted. Yes. But yeah, like Kickstarter is becoming more and more of a thing. I think.
For a bunch of these board games, yes, but
I funded the Dark Souls Kickstarter for the board game as an example.
But do you think, like, say, outside of once they start shipping out to all their backers, and they have, let's say, enough leftover funds to maybe start sending these out to, let's say, specialty stores or a GameStop or whatever, do you think they'll be able to catch on and sell better, or do you think it's a uphill battle for some of these newer board games?
That actually goes along with the topic I was just going to bring up. So, I was looking a little bit at some of the top board games in the last year or 2 years that were based on video games. And the thing is, a lot of them look really elaborate. And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying there's a lot of pieces, there's a lot of stuff involved, a lot of rules. And one could argue it's a lot easier to just get a disc and put it in and play the game than it is to pull out this board game and pull out all these pieces and put it together.
Fair point.
So that might be another reason why it's difficult for them to market a lot of these board games, and you don't hear about it very much because it's a lot easier for someone to, for example, let's see, Doom. Well, it's a lot easier for somebody to just put a Doom CD in and play Doom than it is to play the very elaborate millions of pieces I'm seeing right here in a picture.
What about the
like
elaborate
there's
Super Mario Brothers board games that they had back in the early 90s?
But my point is that might be part of the problem. That
like you're
seeing.
definitely not going to see a lot of crossover with somebody who wants to chainsaw somebody in the face and somebody who wants to sit down and make an actual
exactly.
Gears of War board game.
So, like, if they make the Gears of War board game, I feel like they're marketing that more to people who don't want to sit down in front of a TV and play. They just want to, play the actual cardboard and, like, the plastic pieces. And the problem with that is, as the topic we were talking about earlier, you're marketing that to such a smaller vicinity of people than the actual whole entire video game community that personally loves, Doom or something like that.
Right. Okay. That's a fair argument.
That's another argument that I have over it. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Like I said, I have a ton of board games. I haven't played them in a while. I mean, they're from when I was younger and I still have them. But, I mean, I just, over time, I guess I became one of those people. I mean, I've been thinking about getting back into board games because I go to like magic shops and stuff like that. And if there's a card shop called the Games Keep, it's around the corner from me. They're literally just that. Tons, and you would probably like the store, Mark. It is hundreds of different types of board games and Magic the Gathering cards.
I mean, I'm not a fan of Magic personally, but I see the appeal.
But my point is, majority of it is board games.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, to go back to Robert's point, while also intersecting with yours, you are probably correct that there is going to be a distinct disconnect between people who want to play an action-oriented game versus people who want to play a board game. But I do think that the Dark Souls game is kind of an interesting cross-reference to that, because that game got a lot of publicity when it was initially kickstarted, and Dark Souls generally appeals to a very specific kind of player. The kind who, is actively looking towards the idea of getting the video game equivalent of a punch in the junk. So I think there's a good crossbreeding point as far as a Dark Souls board game goes, and I think that might be a case where we start seeing a significant uptick in visibility for video game themed board games, because that feels like a very strong cross-reference of two groups of people who are probably the same person.
There is a Dark Souls board game coming out this year, actually.
Yep, that's the Kickstarted one. They Kickstarted it last year, I believe.
Oh, okay.
There's I'm waiting for it to come in. They're gonna ship it probably sometime in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Nice.
Yep. I will let you guys know when that comes in, and we'll have to play it.
Yeah.
You have to let me know how it is.
I bet we'll die within the first 30 seconds of setting up the game.
That's what house rules are for, man.
Maybe I'll be better at the board game than I am at actual Dark Souls.
Look, you're welcome to come out if you ever have free time on a Saturday.
Maybe I will. Just depends on the Saturday.
Fair enough. We can work around your schedule. But I mean, that's probably all I have as a concept, and I think that's probably as good of a place to get to as we're going to get to. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
I mean, no, not really.
Board games are awesome. Video games are awesome. Just have a good time.
I kind of agree with you, Mark. I would like to see it explored a lot more, but I think that it needs to be utilized in the correct, or not utilized, but it has to be
marketed.
Nah, I can't.
Well, the thing, but yes, because I'm Googling games and I'm like, there's no way, this could be a board game, and it's a board game. So it's like, but I had no idea. I don't hear it. Nobody talks about it. Nobody says
Exactly.
anything. It's
Like,
not on
nobody's
gaming
talking
news.
about.
Nobody's marketing or advertising. Hey, you like this? For those who like board games, check out this. Nobody's advertising that. That's a problem. If you want board games to become more popular, one of the best ways you could do that is market it. If you're not marketing it properly, then yeah, this small community, that's all that's going to know about it. I had no idea that there was a Dark Souls board game being made. I had no idea. I'd have to literally do what I did and Google Dark Souls board game to find out that there was anything even happening. So I just think that that's something that they really should, considering. But it's not just word of mouth. It's got to be more than that. In a society where we rely heavily on online marketing, if you're not marketing it properly online, well then that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, I definitely feel like tabletop is doing better than it ever has, but it's still a very insular community. Like, tabletop Kickstarters are generally funding so long as you have an idea that people want to see brought to life. Like, several of the games I have on my shelf were kickstarted. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles board game I have, Ghostbusters, A Study in Emerald, all, Cthulhu Wars, all kickstarted games that were all funded many times over because tabletop is getting bigger and bigger, but it's the same people are investing in those games over and over and over again. The Dark Souls game was the closest that we came to people outside of the tabletop community talking about this, because you started seeing gaming magazines, gaming websites talking up this Kickstarter. Like, Kotaku had it on their front page for, like, at different points. Like, we talked about it over at GameFan a little bit. A bunch of different places shilled for the tabletop game that was, on Kickstarter. And I think that was, like, the closest to a significant exposure to the idea of tabletop gaming for people who had not been into it that had existed in a while.
Because it's being marketed on major video game news channels that people actually know about. But if you don't, then it's like you said, it's going to be the same people. Sure, I mean, word of mouth helps a little bit, but it's not going to help enough in regards to the type of growth that the board game scene would need to see.
Yeah, and I definitely feel like there's a good crossbreeding there. Like, you would definitely see the option for tabletop gaming to, like, catch on with people who play video games, because there's a lot more crossover than you would think. I just think that we're not seeing that for one reason or another, and I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a conversation to be had about why that's not happening, or what is, or what can be done. Like, I definitely feel like gaming media could probably talk more about it, for example. But on the whole, I just think it's interesting to look and see, like, why isn't this more of a thing? So it's like I said, I mean, I don't really know that there's an easy solution beyond, like you said, marketing it better. But I feel like we've probably gotten about as far with that as we're going to, short of, actively doing it ourselves or convincing other websites to do it themselves.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
All right. I feel like that is probably about as far conceptually as we are going to go with that discussion. Anybody have anything else?
I got nothing.
All right. Well, that being the case, that is my end of my hosting for this evening.
Yeah.
I do appreciate you folks putting up with me for the night.
Yay!
But you can see all of our Twitter handles underneath of our names, except for Robert's, who's in the upper left-hand corner because he's weird.
It blends into my shirt.
Fair. You can feel free to follow us all on Twitter on our appropriate handles. Make sure to follow the channel here, the GVN Live. You can also follow Emily's Twitch channel, which is
twitch.tv/Jamelian. It's my Twitter handle.
Where she will be... I don't know, what are you doing right now? I know that you were kind of restructuring your channel for a bit.
I'm in the process of still restructuring it, but I will be back soon.
Well, that's good to hear. You can also follow Keith on his channel, which I believe is twitch.tv/TheGamerKeith.
You got it. Same thing is that I'm still kind of going through the whole rebranding thing, or not rebranding, but going through the whole conceptual thing. But yeah, eventually I'll dust the cobwebs off and do something. But until the meantime, I'll be on all of your guys' show. Yay!
Absolutely.
Yay.
You can also follow here at GVN Live, the GVN, where Robert does things basically like 3-4 days out of the week in a lot of cases, including the stuff that he mentioned at the beginning of the show. Or you can follow me on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/MarkBWriting, because they actually allow us to do fucking name changes on Twitch now, which is the most amazing goddamn thing. And where I am currently streaming through Persona 5 every Sunday starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
That's pretty fun. So you're taking advantage of the fact that they've loosened up on the streaming restrictions for the game?
I mean, I'm not at the point where I've even hit the first streaming restriction date, so I'm happy that they announced the second, that they loosened it a bit. I suspect by the time I get to that date, they will probably have forgotten about it altogether. So, I'm hoping that will be the case, but yeah, like I'm getting back into streaming, getting back into doing the stuff I used to do little by little. I have like a podcast open and editing that I hope to try and get up this Friday, but I've been hoping to try to get it up this Friday for 2 weeks now. So, we'll see what happens.
Are we still gonna do that podcast?
Whenever you have time, just let me know. I will.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure because I know you were taking a break for a while on it. So.
Whenever you have free time, let me know.
All right. Sounds good.
But this is Mark B. Writing on behalf of Emily, Keith, and Robert, saying thank you very much, and you folks have a wonderful night.
Adios.
Thank you, and I'm hosting the next show.
Hey, bye-bye. Yes, that is correct. Emily will be hosting the next show on May 15th.
Woo.
I will see you then.
Peace.